Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well. We're going to be doing an oil painting beach scene today. Here's the colors that I'll be using. And the medium that I will be using is going to be the Gamblin solvent-free gel. It's good if you don't like any toxicity, so that would be a really good one to use. So that's what I'll be using. The brushes are as follows. You will want to make sure that you have a palette knife. Any palette knife will do, but I prefer a smaller one just to get smaller details. So let's go ahead and start by blocking in the sky, taking a little bit of cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, and white until you get a nice sky color. I'm going to try to focus on making the darker color up top, and as I get lower, just along the horizon of the water line, I'm going to be putting in just a tad more white. So just picking up a little bit more white as you get further down to the water line. So I just want to talk to you a minute about mediums. I haven't had much experience with a whole lot of them, but I can tell you if you're like me and have little ones, or you just don't like the fumes, I would suggest giving the Gamblin Gal Kid Fast Drying Gel a try, which is the one, again, that I'm using. It will leave your paint more thicker, and it'll implement brush strokes. So if you're, you know, an impasto painter, you know, that would be a good thing for you, especially since it's solvent-free and odorless. But if you want to try something to thin it down more, I would suggest using the Gal Kid liquid medium. It does have some solvents in it, but it's not as bad as some others, and it does give a nice gloss to your painting. And since it's an alkyd based medium, it's going to help increase the dry time. So if you're doing several layers, that's a good thing to use. I haven't had much experience with linseed oil, but it does have an odor. So, you know, if that bothers you, that might be something to look into. But it is safer to use. It's all natural. The thing with the linseed oil is it does slow down the dry time. So it would be good for maybe, you know, alla prima painting, like what I'm doing here. I am going to give that another try, though. I did use it previously, and I just remember it having a strong odor, but I'm going to try and, you know, use it again to see what I think. So as you can see, I'm kind of going 1/4 of the way down, so only about 1/4 of the top of the canvas is going to be covered with sky. The rest is all going to be water and sand. So just about like a quarter of the way down from the top, you want to block in that sky area. So now I'm taking that Phthalo turquoise, some sap green, and just a little bit of the Alizarin crimson to mute down that green until I get a nice color, kind of like a deeper blue-green for the very farthest point of the water. So I'm going to go ahead and start just blocking that part in. Rather than, you know, covering the entire canvas, I kind of just work my way down because I am working with oils and I want to stretch my detail to the max. And sometimes if you do alla prima, you know, or all in one sitting, basically is what that means, then it's going to be difficult to achieve the detail you want if you keep layering and layering and layering. So that's why I try to like block things in individually and I don't try to do layering. A lot of the times when I work with acrylic, I love layering. I do so many different glazes and things like that where I just do really thin layers of paint and it almost gives the look of oil paints, but you don't have to wait for the dry time. So when I work with oil paints, I mostly just do all in one setting because I really like the look of oils more than I do so acrylic. They're just so much more buttery and I don't know how to explain it. They're so luscious. I just love oils. They're just so pretty and the way that they blend is amazing. And I used to be bothered by the fact that I would have to use, you know, some texture in my paintings when I was doing alla prima, but I kind of am coming around to the idea of that now. So as you can see, I took a little bit of ultramarine blue and white, and I'm kind of blocking in this back part of the wave, the furthest wave that you can see. So I'm just, you know, going through with just a darker color so that way I can layer just a few little highlights on that whitewash in certain areas. So see, like right there, doesn't have to be all across the whole thing, just in random areas, maybe where the water's curling over. So as you can see, I'm using a different brush. I did switch to my angled flat brush. I forgot to mention that. So an angled flat brush is really helpful for a bunch of different things. It's one of my go-to brushes, and I love it for creating waves because you can still get the straight lines and edges and things like that, but you can still put in water details, and it's just a good brush. It's one of my favorite types of brushes. So taking that, and I'm going underneath that far wave with that same mixture that we used for the back part of the water. I'm just kind of cleaning up those edges with that color. So I'm taking a little bit of white and mixing it in with that ultramarine blue mixture. And I'm just adding some little distant highlights for maybe where the whitewash is a little heavier. So I had to get some more white on my brush. So now I'm taking, with that turquoise mixture, a little bit of white, a little more sap green. And I'm just lightening up this color that we have. A little bit of cool gray. And I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to kind of just go all over the place with it. This is the nice thing about water, is you can be really random. And sometimes I feel like people put too much thought into it when really it's just a bunch of random shapes. So literally just get crazy with it. I'm just putting in random areas here, and then I'm going to fill in those blank spots that I have on the canvas with the sky blue color. So it's going to be like the reflecting sky in this midsection of the canvas. The only thing that I would suggest is to make sure your marks are getting bigger as you come up closer, and the marks that you're making in the back, kind of make sure that they're, I guess, smaller, if that makes sense, just because for perspective, it'll help you with perspective in your painting. So now I'm picking up that ultramarine blue mixture, same mixture that we had for the sky, just a little bit of ultramarine blue, maybe a little bit of that cerulean blue, and just fill in those little bare spots on the canvas. So if there was any confusion about what I said earlier about me not putting a base layer down and just kind of working section by section, this is basically what I mean by that. I'm leaving spots out purposefully because I want to fill that spot in with a different color. So think ahead, before I do a painting, I'm always trying to think ahead, how I can achieve that realism, achieve the maximum amount of detail that I can get with oils, because sometimes it's just really hard to do. You don't want to layer too much because you'll, end up with mud. I'm just taking a little bit darker of a green mixture and just kind of popping that in some little bare spots that I see. Probably hard for you guys to see on the camera, but there are some bare spots that I see. So that's all I'm doing, and I'm just trying to use a variety of different mixtures here just to give it a little extra interest, because there are so many different colors and shapes in water. So it will only help to the realism in your painting when doing that. So I'm going to kind of put in like a little tiny wave, not one that's curling over, just one that's coming up that you'll kind of be able to see. So I'm taking more of that cool blue mixture, the sky blue mixture, because I need to mix a little bit more, which again was that ultramarine blue and white. You can use a touch of that cerulean blue as well. So just popping that in there around that little wave that I just put in. And now I'm going to bring down the blue even more so right down closer to us, because I really want some of that pretty sky blue color, the sky reflecting off of the water. I want that to really be shown here throughout this midsection. These reflections and everything that you're putting into your painting, even though somebody might not realize it, but the sky color that's reflecting through the water is just going to add to the clearness of your water. It's really going to accentuate how, the look that you're trying to achieve, and how we're trying to get such a glassy, clear water look in this painting. So anytime you're doing a painting where you want that glassy look to water, it's not like, some people think that it's the type of paint you're using. It's really not. It's the reflective surfaces that you're painting onto whatever you're painting. That's what's going to really give it that look. For example, I'm going to take some white on my brush and literally just swipe down in that back wave part that we put in. I'm going to do it a little bit later, but all it is just a swipe of your brush, and you'll see how big of a difference it makes. It gives it that placid look. So this isn't something that people that have been painting for years can only achieve. This is something that a beginner can achieve. Think about that stuff when you're painting water. If you're an ocean artist and you're really trying to pump up your water, just think about all of that and how you can just add to the reflectiveness of the painting to help you achieve the look that you're going for. I'm taking a little bit of that yellow, mixing it in with that green color we already have with the turquoise and the sap green, and taking a little bit of my Galkid and just a touch of red. Red is going to tone down that green. It's going to give it just that more muted green, which is also going to give you more of a realistic color. And this is going to be for the dark parts of the wave. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of pop this in random areas. I'm working on the wave right now, the front wave, and it's just going to be very random. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. I'm just placing it wherever I see fit, and then I will start making a mixture for my brighter color, which is just going to be basically a little more yellow and white. And don't be afraid to just put random colors in there. Like I said, there's all sorts of different colors in the water. So the more variation that you have, it's just going to add to the effect of your water. So that's really all I'm doing. And, just trying to make that color really nice and muted. So I'm taking the sap green, phthalo turquoise, and a little bit of the red just to make a darker color. Something that I can put a little bit of depth into the wave with. So I'm just going to take that color that I have, the dark color, and kind of just bring it down in the foreground, which is pretty much the sand area. It's just going to add a little bit of extra shadow areas down there. So as I get down further to the sand, I'm going to be kind of mixing up more of an earthy tone, and I'm going to do that by taking red, blue, and yellow. And I'm just going to keep mixing until I get a nice sandy color. So taking a little bit of my medium, some yellow, some red, a little bit of blue. And I just keep mixing this until I get a neutral color. So if it's on the red side, I add a little bit of yellow and blue. If it's got too much blue in it, I'll add a little bit of yellow and red. And of course, if it's got too much yellow in it, I will mix in more red and blue. So just try to think opposite colors. That's what's going to cancel it out and make it more of a neutral color. And I just keep doing that until I get a good shade. So I want something kind of darker because this is kind of like a wet sandy area underneath this. The water, I'm going to have like whitewash right here, so I'm making a darker sand color since this is all wet sand. And then as I get closer, I'm going to add more white so that way the sand at the very bottom of the canvas, the dry sand, is going to be more of a white sand color. So see, I've got that sand color there. I'm trying to get it not so green. It's got a little bit of a green tint to it, so I'm going to just add the slightest bit of red and white just to kind of really make it look neutral. So that's about the color that you want for that pretty white sand. So I'm just taking a brush and kind of dabbing on some very faint white details, which is going to kind of act like a shadow for the whitewash because it's actually going to be mixing into the colors beneath it since you're painting wet on wet. So it's not going to be your brightest white. That's what we're going to save for. We're going to save that when we use the palette knife. That's going to help a lot. So the palette knife is going to really bring out your bright highlights. But right now I'm kind of just testing the waters to see if I like where this whitewash is going. And like I said, it's not going to be super white because it's mixing in with the paint colors below. So just kind of like a little bit of a shadow. I'm just trying to blend out some areas. And I'm going to go ahead and have like a little bit of a splash coming from certain areas of this wave, almost looking like it's about to roll over. So I'm just going to take a little bit of white on the end of my brush, and I am going to detail it out with a palette knife as well. So taking just a little bit of that white, and I'm just gonna like twist my brush around. You're just trying to get the paint off of your brush. It's gonna be hard, like I said, because you are painting wet on wet. So just kind of twist your brush around. You can put those bright highlights on the on these parts too with, like I said, the palette knife. And I'm just using straight white. So I'm just kind of, like I said, doing little rolling motions with my brush. And I'm going to come down here and put a little splash right over in this area. And since there is some whitewash coming off of this rolling wave, I'm gonna put a little bit of that, like suds, a little bit of ocean suds right below it. So I'm taking a little bit of that ultramarine blue and white, a little bit of that sky color, and I'm gonna put it in just certain areas. Not much, you don't want too much because you don't want to kill the detail that's below, you know, everything that you painted. You don't want to cover that up completely. I'm just kind of putting it in certain areas. So I'm going to grab my palette knife. I got this palette knife, it came in a set, and I got it from Hobby Lobby. I really like the metal ones. They just seem to, you know, work better for me. So I'm going to take white straight from the tube, and I'm just, see how I just dabbed it right onto the edge of my palette knife? You want nice thick paint on there. And I'm just going to kind of take the paint and just lightly touching the canvas, spread it around just to get the paint onto the canvas. You can even then afterwards take the edge of your palette knife and kind of just scrape some of the paint off in areas where you want the whitewash thinner. Just play around with it. It gives it a cool effect, and I do like the texture. I like that it looks like a painting up close, so I do like all that texture. But from far away, I really like that it looks like a realistic ocean scene. So I'm just going to work on putting those details in the whitewash. So I'm going to take my palette knife and I'm going to just dab on where we put these little rolling waves in at. You don't want to put it all over the place, just in little random areas. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my 1-inch flat brush just to work on these back waves, farthest waves. And I'm going to load my brush with a little bit of that white paint, and I'm going to just dab a little bit on where I want the whitewash to be the most prominent. I want these to be pretty white in color because wherever you put it really white at, you can swipe down, like I said earlier. So this is why you want a flat brush, because you'll want to get a nice clean line. So see how I'm just literally pulling downwards, just downwards motions wherever you put the brightest highlights in at. And then you can kind of take your brush and swipe across. And you don't want it too dark, just a little bit, just enough to kind of give it that look that it's being reflected off of the water below it. So again, you're just pulling down. And I'm just working on brightening up some areas with that ultramarine blue and white mixture. And I've got a light green. I just picked up some of that light green mixture that we have in that big rolling wave in the front. And I'm just kind of putting it in certain areas where I have the green at, just to kind of give it a little more depth, a little more interest. So I'm taking my blue, yellow, and red, and I just made a dark mixture. You can use burnt umber and maybe a little bit of white, and just go right underneath. Just line this water line a little bit, just so you can see that there's a little bit of a shadow. You can even go in certain areas back behind that too, maybe along some thicker parts where the whitewash is. Like I said, not a lot, just a little bit. I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm just going to put it in certain areas in this midsection of the water. This can maybe be some lighter reflective areas, or maybe just a little bit of some white, sudsy whitewash. So my intention was just to put some details in the back part of the water there with my brush, but you're going to be better off if you just take your palette knife and you're just going to dab on little tiny dots. So all I did was I just took a little bit of the white that was on my palette with my knife, and just along the edge of the palette knife I just kind of scraped off some of that white paint, just a little bit on the very edge, and I'm just dabbing the edge of the palette knife into the canvas to give those distant impressions of faraway waves. And you can just kind of put some more water details in this area if you want. So now with a little brush, maybe just like a little round brush, I'm taking straight white and a lot of paint, and I'm just dabbing it in certain areas all around the canvas, because I want it to look kind of like there's some glistening, sparkly water in certain areas. So you don't need to do it all over the place, just in random areas. I'm going to put some on the wave too. So this is about it for the painting. The last step that I'm going to do is I'm taking a flat inch brush and I'm spritzing on very thin paint. I just did a mix of burnt umber, a little bit of white, and some Gamsol. Gamsol is a paint thinner, and I use it to clean my brushes. It's odorless, and I use it to, just spritz on little details if I need to, like that. So that's pretty much it, other than just filling in some bare spots that I might see on the canvas and just tidying up a few things here and there. So I hope that you guys really enjoyed this one. I hope that you learned something, and please don't forget to share your paintings with me. I love seeing your paintings. I am on Instagram, and it is the same name as my YouTube, Lucid Renditions Art. So just find me, send me a message, and just show me what you're doing. I really, really love to see those paintings. So Thank you so much, guys, and of course, if you enjoyed this video and you have not already, please make sure to subscribe, and also don't forget to hit that notification bell to be alerted of my upcoming videos.